to the fruit, more bass than Bootsy Collins. You versus me, that's like Ali versus Foreman. God's act.
Yo, what is going on, you guys? My name is Tyler and welcome back to another gameplay commentary. And in today's video I have a life story that I wanted to share with you guys. One I already told on my channel about 2 years ago, but again, with most of my stories that I've told in the past, it was just told horribly. It was really hard to follow, so I figured I'd go ahead and redo it. Also, just because a lot of you haven't even seen the original video, I believe. The first time I posted this video, it only got about 800 views over like the 2 years that it had been up on my channel, so I don't think many of you seen it. I'm pretty sure it didn't even have a thumbnail. But for today's gameplay, you guys are watching some Tony Hawk Underground Pro. I actually get quite a few questions about this whenever I use this game as gameplay in my videos. People are asking me what game it is or what Tony Hawk game it is. So it's pretty much just a mod for Tony Hawk Underground 2 on the PC called Thug Pro, and it's basically the Call of Duty Online version of Tony Hawk. Essentially what the mod does is it just mashes all the Tony Hawk games from Tony Hawk Underground 1 to Tony Hawk Underground 2 and all of the Pro Skater games and any other game in between, pretty much all of the good Tony Hawk games, and it's got a lot of cool like new character customizations, just shit like that was like fucked up in the original version of Underground 2. But anyways, enough about that, let me just jump right into this story. So this story ends up taking place way back in my 9th grade year of high school, back in the day when I was first starting to get into smoking weed, and I had like a super low tolerance. So at the time, my friend and I kind of had like a little routine or a little plan where one of us would end up buying weed the day before, and we would end up rolling it up into a joint or like a blunt, and we'd just meet up before school and walk to the bus stop and just walk through the neighborhood smoking this blunt or this joint. And so the particular morning of this story, my friend and I ended up meeting up before school, and I had ended up bringing the joint with me. It was a pretty big joint. It was a king-size paper, if I remember right. And so my friend and I ended up meeting up before school on our way to the bus stop, and we're just walking, heading to the bus stop, just smoking this joint, and nobody in our neighborhood or in the neighborhood I was living at the time really cared about it. It was a super laid-back, chill, just like full-on hippie neighborhood. So anyways, my friend and I are just walking down the street, smoking this joint, and by the time we ended up getting to the bus stop, it wasn't enough time to finish it, so we decided to put it out about halfway and just save it for after school. So our main plan was just to leave this half-smoked joint laying at the bus stop, hiding behind like a little picket fence that was sitting out front of it. That way we didn't have to bring it to school and we could go to school without having to worry about smelling like weed or anything like that. And so the end of the school day ends up coming around, and my friend and I end up taking our school bus back home. We end up getting off at the same stop that we got on at. This way we were able to pick up this half-smoked joint, and we were pretty much just anticipating smoking this the whole day. So eventually, once we finally get off the bus, we end up grabbing this little joint, this half-smoked joint that we had left behind the picket fence. We wait till the bus pulls away from the bus stop, and we end up walking back up towards our house, and we just finish up smoking this joint. So we're lighting it, passing it back and forth, and at this point, this is when shit really started to get real in the story. So we're walking down the street in our neighborhood, just basically getting back to our house. We only had like a 3 or 4 block walk that we had to do, so we're passing this joint back and forth, continually hitting it, just like trying to get it down pretty much, and we end up finishing this half joint, and I swear to you, the second I threw it on the ground, we ended up turning around this corner, and right after we finished making the turn around the corner, like walking around the corner, we end up seeing a police officer, a police car come over the little hill on the street that we were turning onto. And so immediately my friend and I kind of just panicked because, you know, we were clearly just smoking weed. We were thinking that it was a call, like somebody in the neighborhood had called the cops saying that we were smoking weed walking down the street. But keep in mind, we had also finished smoking the joint at this time. We were just stoned and paranoid, and we had thrown it on the ground. You know, there was no way to prove that we were smoking anything, although we did smell like weed. And so we continue walking up the street heading towards this cop car because he was coming towards us and we had to go past him to get back to our house. And it would look super sketchy and super suspicious if we just immediately turned around right when we saw him, so we had to keep going the way that we were going. So we end up walking up closer and closer to this cop car. The cop car is continuing to pull towards us, and it's starting to slow down as we were getting closer to it. So immediately once I started seeing this cop car slowing down, I was just like, fuck dude, my heart started beating like crazy. I was just like, I was freaking out almost in my head, you know. Physically outside I wasn't really like showing too many signs of paranoia or being spooked or anything like that, because the minute you do that around cops, they just immediately think you're up to something whether you are or not. So I just try my hardest not to show like I'm paranoid or spooked or anything like that on the outside, although pretty much every time I encounter a police officer or anybody who's like upholding some sort of laws, I get spooked on the inside. I hate dealing with legal people or any people like that. So this cop pulls up next to us and he ends up rolling down his window, and I couldn't see who was in the cop car to begin with, or like at first when he was first pulling up. So we end up approaching up to the cop car. We're like literally a couple feet away from it, and he had his window pretty much halfway rolled down at this point, and the police officer just goes, "Hey guys, come over here real quick." So we end up walking up to him, and the first thing he says to me is, "Hey Tyler, how are you doing?" And at first I was not expecting this at all, like whatsoever. I was so spooked when he said that. And so immediately after he said my name, I kind of got thinking, like, I was a little bit spooked out that he already knew my name, but he looked super familiar, and I couldn't tell where from. So this police officer continues to ask me and my friend some questions, you know, like, how you doing, how you been, all this stuff. And as he was asking me more questions, I started to remember exactly where I'd seen this officer before. And so just like that, it clicks in my head, you know, I know where this officer's from, and I remembered exactly where I knew him from. So a few years prior to this incident, when I had first moved into that house in that neighborhood, I ended up getting my house broken into, and that was the officer who ended up responding to the call. So immediately, once I kind of recognized that, or once I had realized that it was the same cop who came to my house previously, you know, I kind of chilled out a little bit and understood why he knew my name and, like, was asking me all these questions and stuff. And essentially, when it ended up coming down to it, all he wanted to do was basically just check up on me and see how I was doing, because I was a really young kid at the time when my house ended up getting broken into. If I remember right, I think I may have been in like 5th grade at the time, so it was a super long time ago. But if you guys would want to hear a story on that, let me know down below in the comments, because I don't think I ever talked about that on my channel before, now that I think about it. So pretty much after me and this cop ended up having this little conversation, kind of catching up, he basically just told me, you know, have a good day, hope you stay out of trouble and whatnot. And that was that. And thankfully he didn't say anything about the weed. I don't even think he knew about the weed to begin with. But I was also being pretty cautious not to lean in too close to the car so he could smell my breath or like smell my hands. Like, I was being cautious not to wave my hands around or anything like that, because for those of you who have smoked joints or smoked blunts before, so immediately you know what's going to smell the most after you're done smoking a blunt or a joint. You know, it's either going to be your fingers are going to smell like fucking dank, or it's going to be your breath. So at all times I was trying to avoid like waving my hands around in his face so he could smell my hands, or like getting too close to his window so he couldn't smell my breath. But in the end of the situation, all in all, was good. Nobody ended up getting like arrested or anything like that, even though it was just a crazy close call and it was just super spooky. But hopefully you guys enjoyed today's video. If you guys did at any point, please be sure to let me know by leaving a like down below on this video. If you guys have ever experienced any similar situation to this, let me know down below in the comment section. I always like reading those comments. And again, if you guys want to get your comment pinned, I talked about this in a couple other videos before. If you guys want to get your comment pinned, leave something like super creative or just uncommon to see in the comment sections, I guess, something unique, or just like anything that'll make your comment stand out, and I will pin it to the top of the comment section. But anyways, thanks again so much for watching today's video. Hopefully you guys have a great day, even though the video was uploaded a little bit later. You know I love each and every one of you so very much. I'm out. Peace.
I got more keys than Alicia. These niggas be talking police. 12. I took your hoe and released her. I used to trap out a Regal. 200,000 on my wrist. I thought it all was a fantasy. 200,000 on my wrist.